How many of you guys have ever heard this before?
Well, that car just pulled right out in front of me, and to keep from hitting it, I just laid the motorcycle down.
As a motorcycle instructor, I've heard that line of reasoning multiple times. And some of you guys may be watching. And believe me, it's not my intention to come on here and offend anybody. But here we go. Because I've got 2 words for you. Stop it. Instead of laying her down, how about if you stop it? So have you guys ever heard a comment like that before? Someone's telling you about their motorcycle accident, and to avoid from hitting the car, they just laid her down? Well, there's several things that are inaccurate about that statement, and let's look at that first. You can't just lay a motorcycle in motion down. You got 2 big gyroscopes turning underneath you, the 2 wheels, and they keep a motorcycle upright, so you can't just lay it down. You may hit the brakes, causing the tires to lock up and the motorcycle to the low side or fall over to its side, but there's a different term for that, and it's called a crash. The second thing about that statement that really bugs me is you're implying that you laid it down to avoid a crash. Well, if you lay a motorcycle down, you're going to crash 100% of the time. You'd be much better off using your brakes and either avoiding the crash altogether or slowing the motorcycle down so that you're hitting the object at a greatly reduced speed. The third thing that really bugs me about this whole layer down idea is the idea that your butt is going to do a better job of stopping you than the rubber on your motorcycle tires. If you fall off your motorcycle, you're going to still slide into the object you were hoping to avoid, and you're going to get there missing some skin off your backside. If you stop before you get there, sliding on your butt, then you would have stopped in a shorter distance using your tires, and you wouldn't have done any damage to your motorcycle or your body in the process. So if laying her down is really not a good option, let's look at what is emergency braking. This week we're going to look at how it works, how to do it, and why you need to practice it. So let's look at how emergency stopping on a motorcycle works. Have you ever been riding in a car, you've got a bunch of groceries in your back seat, you slam on the brakes, what happens to all the groceries? Right, they go forward, they keep going forward, and they fall into the floorboard of your car. Well, it's the same kind of deal on a motorcycle, so let me bring in my assistant here, Mark Marquez, and he's going to demonstrate for us. You're on a motorcycle, you're riding down the road, the car pulls out in front of you, you begin applying the brakes, and more weight of the motorcycle goes to this front tire. In fact, on a sport bike like this, it's probably 80-90% of your stopping power is going to be on that front brake or that front tire. On a cruiser, it's going to be a little more balanced because of the frame, the design of the motorcycle. It's going to have a little more stopping power from this rear tire, but a sport bike like this, a lot of your stopping power, 80-90%, is going to come from that front tire. So the motorcycle begins to stop and more weight shifts to the front of it. The forks begin to compress. That spreads that tire out on the pavement, causing more friction with that tire to the road. So as you slow down, more and more pressure is going to that front tire, more and more stopping power to this front tire. So because that weight shift is such an important part of stopping a motorcycle, it's important to understand proper braking technique in an emergency situation. Because our instinct is, when that car pulls out in front of us, to reach out and grab that front brake in order to try to get the motorcycle to stop quickly. If you do that in an emergency situation, you're going to stop that front tire from spinning before the motorcycle has had a chance to transfer its weight forward, giving you more traction to stop the motorcycle. So depending on what type of motorcycle you ride, anywhere from 70 to 90% of your stopping power is going to come from that front brake. So it's important to practice and train proper braking technique, particularly with that front brake. You always want to use the front and the rear brake when you're stopping in an emergency situation, because even if the stopping power is 90% on that front tire, in an emergency, I don't want to give up that additional 10% stopping as well. So I'm going to use the rear brake in addition to the front brake. But the modulation or the use of that front brake becomes particularly important. So when I'm pulling up to a stoplight, my brake hand looks like this. And now I'm riding down the road and a car's pulled out in front of me. My brake hand looks more like this. And notice I didn't change the way that I went to the front brake. The only difference is how long I continue to squeeze on that front brake. So that slow progressive squeeze of that front brake is going to allow the weight of the motorcycle to shift to the front tire, giving it more and more stopping power, and at the same time you're slowly applying more and more brake to help it get the bike to stop in the shortest distance possible. So it's no big secret on how to practice doing a quick stop. What I do is I find an empty parking lot and I'll get the bike up to about 20-30 miles per hour, usually in second gear, and then at some point I'll perform a quick stop, making sure I downshift to first gear as I come to a stop, and my left foot goes down first. That allows me to use the front and the rear brake all the way through the stop. One of the main purposes of practicing quick stops is to retrain your instinct, particularly with that front brake. Because like we said earlier, your natural instinct when that car pulls out in front of you is to reach out and grab that front brake. If you do that, you're going to lock that tire up every time. What you need to do is have that slow, progressive squeeze of that front brake, and all the way through the stop, you're slowly applying pressure to that front brake. That's the technique that you need to have, and it needs to be your habit so that when you need it out on the road, that's your natural instinct, is to progressively squeeze on that front brake to get the motorcycle to come to a stop. So let's recap. First, emergency braking works primarily using the front brake because as the motorcycle stops, the weight continues to shift forward, giving the front brake more and more stopping power. Second, you stop a motorcycle quickly by slowly adding more and more pressure in a progressive squeeze to that front brake. And third, you need to practice emergency stops because you have to retrain your instincts from grabbing the brakes in an emergency situation. You're going to want to be here for next week's episode because we're going to talk about ABS and its impact on your ability to get a motorcycle to come to a stop. Now, I know in Europe that they've passed a law that all new motorcycles have to have ABS. Here in the States, that hasn't passed yet, so you can buy a lot of motorcycles with an ABS option and some without ABS altogether. So make sure you tune in next week. It's a really important episode, something I really believe in, and we'll have a discussion on the impacts of ABS in stopping a motorcycle. So guys, this wraps up episode 10 of MCrider. Over the last 10 weeks, we've covered a lot of topics. Things like being smooth on your motorcycle, how to avoid being rear-ended, your mental approach to riding. Episode 5 really ties into what we talked about today. So if you haven't seen episode 5, go back and watch that one and refresh your memory on proper wrist position for getting a motorcycle to come to a stop. But it's been my pleasure to bring these videos to you guys. I've gotten a lot of really good feedback in the comments. You guys have sent me messages through our Facebook page and through our page at MCrider.com. And I want to encourage you to help me spread the word, help me get more riders turned on to this page, to find out about this page. My goal is to eventually have the largest free resource for motorcycle training on the web. And I can't do it without you guys. I can't do it without you guys helping me spread the word. So if you feel like these have been beneficial to you, please share our content with other riders and help them out as well. and help me to grow this channel and to grow MCrider.com into the largest free resource on the web for motorcycle training, tips, and techniques. Guys, we'll see you on the road.